George Russell delivered one of the most composed, yet quietly devastating, responses in the 2026 paddock so far. Speaking to Sky Sports on April 17th, during F1's 5-week break ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, the Mercedes driver addressed Max Verstappen's growing threat to walk away from Formula One. And his message was precise. He didn't have the same complaint because he was winning. That single line captures everything about the tension running through this story. A 4-time world champion, struggling in the midfield with a new car that he says feels nothing like Formula One. And his championship rival, leading the standings, watching on from the front of the grid. After finishing 8th at the Japanese Grand Prix, in approximately 30 seconds behind race winner Kimi Antonelli of Mercedes. Verstappen confirmed to BBC Sport at Suzuka that he is actively considering leaving Formula One at the end of the 2026 season. Let that result sink in for a moment. This is a driver who led the Drivers' Championship for over 1,000 consecutive days prior to this season. He is now recording finishes outside the top 5 across 3 straight Grands Prix, something that, as Sky Sports F1 confirmed, has not happened to Verstappen in 9 years. In the season opener in Melbourne, Verstappen finished 6th. In China, he failed to finish at all. Then came Japan, 8th place, knocked out of Q2 by Racing Bull's rookie Arvid Lindblad. 3 races, 3 painful results. And the toll is clearly emotional as well as competitive. As Verstappen stated directly to Sky Sports F1 after the Japanese Grand Prix, when you are in P7 or P8 and you are not enjoying the whole formula behind it, it doesn't feel natural to a racing driver. It's really anti-driving. Then at one point, yeah, it's just not what I want to do. When asked point blank whether he would walk away from F1 at the end of the year, his reply was unambiguous. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking about everything inside this paddock. These are not off-the-cuff frustrations. This is a 4-time world champion who has won everything the sport can offer, genuinely questioning whether the 2026 version of Formula One is worth his time. To understand why Verstappen and several other drivers are so frustrated, you have to understand what the 2026 regulation overhaul actually changed. And it is significant. As confirmed by FIA technical documentation, the 2026 power unit regulations moved Formula One to a 50/50 split of power generation between the internal combustion engine and the electrical hybrid system. Critically, the MGUH, the motor generator unit heat, was removed entirely. That component used to harvest energy from exhaust gases continuously and deploy it seamlessly. Without it, generating and managing electrical energy is now far more complex. The result? Drivers can no longer simply push flat out. They must actively manage battery deployment, downshift on straights to regenerate energy, use greater levels of lift and coast, and time throttle application carefully around the lap to ensure deployment at optimal moments. As PlanetF1.com confirmed in their technical breakdown, while overall lap times may not differ dramatically from the previous generation, the dynamics require drivers to keep energy constraints in mind at all times. Verstappen compared the experience to Formula E on steroids during preseason testing, a description that landed hard across the paddock. He also called it anti-racing and said it was like playing Mario Kart. He is not alone. Multiple drivers across the grid have raised concerns, but none have been as vocal or as direct about the personal consequences as Verstappen. George Russell's response, delivered during a Mercedes media video call on April 17th, was a masterclass in diplomatic precision. He acknowledged the loss Verstappen's departure would represent, and then made sure everyone understood the context. Formula One is bigger than any driver, Russell told Sky Sports. You wouldn't want to lose Max because we all enjoy racing against Max. But then came the line that defined the entire exchange. Russell drew a direct parallel to his own experience with the controversial 2022 cars. The heavily criticized ground effect era that arrived with severe porpoising, physical discomfort, and genuine safety concerns for drivers. As Russell stated, I didn't enjoy driving the 22 car when it was porpoising up and down, killing everybody's backs. The car was big, it was heavy. but he didn't have the same complaint because he was winning. It is a factual and well-documented observation. Red Bull's RB18 and RB19 dominated those regulations. Verstappen won 15 races in 2022 and a record 19 inches 2023. There were no public complaints about the character of the racing from the Red Bull garage during those years. Russell went further, also noting the competitive reality that separates their perspectives right now. The complaints that he has currently are different to the complaints of Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren, because we're at the front end of the grid. As stated by Sky Sports F1, this observation underlines that frustration with regulations often correlates directly with where a driver sits in the competitive order. The deeper story beneath Verstappen's frustration is a technical one. For the 2026 season, Red Bull built their first fully in-house power unit in partnership with Ford. A monumental undertaking for an organization that previously relied on Honda. As GP fans confirmed in their race analysis, while preseason testing appeared relatively stable, Verstappen admitted during the Australian Grand Prix weekend that he was completely drained emotionally when driving the RB22 in race conditions. The combination of a brand new power unit architecture, the complex new hybrid energy regulations, and aerodynamic rules focused on drag reduction rather than downforce generation has created a car that Verstappen has openly said does not suit his natural driving style. McLaren team principal Andrea Stella, speaking to Sky Sports F1 following the Japanese Grand Prix, was frank about the timeline for any solution. A simple solution does not exist, and suggested that meaningful changes to the racing formula would likely not arrive before 2027 at the earliest. That means for the remainder of 2026, drivers, teams, and fans are managing within a framework that Verstappen describes as fundamentally at odds with what Formula One should feel like. And for a driver who has spent his career racing flat out on the limit, managing electrical deployment on straights represents a cultural and competitive shift that he has been unable to accept. What makes this story genuinely compelling is the contrast in circumstances. While Verstappen is questioning his future, Russell is chasing his first driver's championship from the front of the grid. The two men are experiencing the same regulations in completely different ways, and that divergence defines their public positions. As Russell stated clearly during the April 17th session, "My goal now is to become a Formula One world champion." Mercedes entered the 2026 era ahead of the competitive pack, and Russell's comments throughout the season have reflected a driver energized by a real title opportunity, not burdened by rules he dislikes. Russell also showed genuine empathy for the psychological reality of Verstappen's situation, telling journalists, "Knowing him as I do, and knowing drivers who have won or achieved similar things, at one point you want to do what puts a smile on your face." He cited Verstappen's participation in GT3 endurance racing at the Nürburgring Nordschleife as entirely understandable. "I can totally understand why driving the Nordschleife puts a smile on his face." The subtext is clear. Verstappen, with 4 world championships and nothing left to prove, is asking a different question than Russell is. Not, "How do I win?" but "Is this still worth doing at all?" This story is about more than one driver's frustration with a regulation change. It is a window into what happens when the most dominant driver in a generation faces an environment that no longer suits him, and when his direct rival, now leading the championship, responds with documented facts rather than empty sympathy. George Russell's comments are backed by competitive reality. The 2026 regulations changed Formula One profoundly. Red Bull and Verstappen are struggling to adapt. Mercedes are not. And Russell's observation that complaints are louder when results are worse is not speculation. It is a pattern documented across 3 consecutive race weekends. Max Verstappen has until the end of the 2026 season to decide whether Formula One under these regulations is a challenge he wants to continue. The Miami Grand Prix, beginning May 1st, will be the next data point in that calculation. I'll continue bringing you only verified Formula One statistics, real driver interviews, and documented race analysis. No clickbait, no speculation. Just the facts about what's actually happening in Formula One based on official sources and verified information.